Well, alrighty then, Econ 100. Welcome to Perfect Competition. This is going to be the first of our 4 different market structures that we're going to look at. Now, when you think of perfect competition, you can think of it more as really like a theoretical boundary. But it's important to understand perfect competition. We're going to be able to compare it to our other market structures, monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly, so that we can see the benefits, the advantages of competition. Why do economists like competition? Well, it's efficient. It allows more people to participate in the process, it brings prices down, and it increases the quantity produced, and it reduces deadweight loss. So that's why we like competition. That's why we like to encourage competition. Here, we're going to talk about the theoretical boundary or an instance of perfect competition. Now, what are the assumptions that get us to perfect competition? In perfect competition, we have many buyers, we have many sellers selling identical products, free entry and exit into the market, and in order to be perfectly perfect, we need homogeneous firms, or all the firms are little identical copies of each other with the same marginal cost of production. Like the picture you saw on the introduction slide, right? We had Jimmy the Price Taker versus James Shutter Down, identical copies of each other fighting. Here, fighting for profits. What's the big takeaway that we get with perfect competition? Everybody is a price taker. So no individual buyer, no individual firm or seller is going to have any power over the price. Markets are going to dictate prices to the buyer and to the firms. Now, in reality, markets are just made up of individual buyers and sellers. So every individual should at least have some sort of infinitesimal amount of power over the price. But here, we're going to say it so little that we're going to divorce the two. We're going to separate it. So the market is going to dictate prices to the buyers. It's going to dictate prices to the sellers. As far as the buyers go, well, there's just too many buyers out there. So no matter how much you buy, you're just a drop in the bucket. You can't affect that price. On the seller side, well, it's hard enough to have a collusion when you have just a few firms. But when you have many firms, there's always going to be competition. And there's going to be entry into this market that eventually is going to get the price all the way down to the average total cost. So firms are going to be making zero economic profit. So they're not going to be able to lower the price, well, because then they'll be taking a loss. They're hurt by lowering the price. And they're not able to raise the price either. We're selling identical products. If I raise the price on the wheat that I sell, well, nobody's going to buy wheat from me if it's identical to the wheat that you sell. Nobody's going to purchase from me. So here, again, what is going to be special about perfect competition is that everybody is a price taker. Our markets are going to dictate prices to our buyers and to our sellers. So that's what we have here. This is a visual representation here. These are our graphs in perfect competition. On the left-hand side, we have our market supply and demand curves. We've already talked about these, right? We've already had a lecture about these. So really, what was I lecturing you about? I was lecturing about market supply and demand in the short run with our downward sloping demand curve and our upward sloping supply curve. The intersection of those two determines the price, and we dictate that price to the firm. Over here, the price you see that the firm takes, that's really their demand curve. So the way you say it, the firm can sell as many units as they want, but they have to sell it at the price dictated to them by the market. So you see you have that flat demand curve. It's not downward sloping. You don't have any power over the price. The price is dictated to you. So you can produce as many units as you want, but it's at the price given to you by the market. So if that's the case, where do you want to produce? Of course, we always produce where our marginal revenue equals our marginal cost. Here, what I'm going to show you, because we're price takers, we have no power over the price is going to be equal to the marginal revenue. So not only do we produce where the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost here, we produce where the price equals the marginal cost. And in this graph, we are at our long run, what we call zero profit condition, where the price also equals the average total cost. So your price here is going to be your average revenue. As long as you sell all your units at the same price, The price is also your average revenue. It's the average revenue you get per unit. If I sell 10 units at $10, what is my price? $10. What is my average revenue? $10. So here where I produce, where price equals average total cost, I'm going to have zero economic profit. That is my long run condition, my zero profit condition. If there were positive profits, by definition, it means there's firms outside the market that are better off inside the market. So they will continue to enter the market until the supply gets the price back down to zero economic profit. If prices are too low and there's negative economic profit, there's firms making losses, by definition, firms are better off outside the market than inside the market. So you're going to see firms exiting that market. Supply will decrease until the price comes back up to the zero profit condition. So here I am showing you that our market is dictating our price to the firm. Whenever you show perfect competition, really you want both graphs here in order to get the full picture. Now, to see the full picture, we're going to take a look at the books for a firm in perfect competition. So here we go. I know I got a lot of columns here. So in this chart, what do we have? We have the quantity that we're going to produce. Here I have gallons. I'm talking about water. So I was thinking of a product that is identical between firms. So here we're selling gallons of water. So this is an identical product. And so this is the units that we're going to sell. We see the price. So here we see that we're a price taker. We can sell as many units as we want, but it's at the price dictated to us by the market. Here, this market is dictating a price of $10. The next column is our total revenue. What is our total revenue? Of course, it is just our price times our quantity. Now, the next column shows our average revenue. What you're going to see here is that our average revenue is equal to the price. Once again, we're assuming that there's no price discrimination. Price discrimination, we're going to talk about when we get to monopolies. That's when you sell the same product to different people at different prices. We're assuming that's not happening here. You're selling all your units at the same price. Even in a monopoly, most of the time we're going to assume that until we get to a price discrimination and we talk about how that's a strategy for firms using price discrimination. Here we're assuming that's not happening, so we're selling each unit at the same price, so the price equals my average revenue, just $10. My total cost is my fixed cost plus my variable cost. So here, hopefully you can see that my fixed costs are $5 because I'm incurring that even when I'm not producing anything. Even when production is zero, I'm selling 0 gallons of water. Okay, so other than that, all of my costs now are of course going to come from my variable costs. My profit, that is just my total revenue minus my total cost. My marginal revenue, that's the additional revenue I get from selling one more unit. That is what's going to be unique here in perfect competition. My marginal revenue is going to equal my average revenue, which is going to equal my price. So here, every unit I sell is at $10. So what's the additional revenue I get from selling one more unit? Well, it's just $10. The first unit at 10, the second unit another 10, the third unit another 10. And so as I'm going to be able to show you as we go through our different market structures, that's really what allows perfect competition to be efficient. It's going to mean that we're going to produce with no dead weight loss because we're always going to be able to produce where the demand curve is equal to our marginal revenue. Where our demand curve is equal to our marginal cost curve. And it's going to end up meaning that we produce at the minimum of our average total cost curve or our efficient scale. Those are things I'm going to be able to show you as we go through the lectures in our different market structures. Now, our marginal cost here, that's the cost we incur to sell one more unit. Those marginal costs are rising. Hopefully you understand why that is after our last lecture with cost of production. Diminishing marginal productivity, right? Diminishing marginal productivity leads to a rising marginal cost. Now here, this last column is the change in our profit or our marginal profit. So selling that first unit, we add $7 in profit. Now selling the second unit adds an additional 6, then an additional 5, and so on and so forth. So these are the books for a firm in perfect competition. So now looking at this chart, where would this firm produce in order to maximize profits? How many units would this firm produce? How many gallons of water would this firm sell? Well, remember, we always want to produce where our marginal revenue equals our marginal cost. That's what maximizes our profits. So here we would want to sell 8 units. Obviously, that last unit, the marginal revenue and the marginal cost are equal to each other. That's our indifference point. We assume we go through with the production at the indifference point. But we want to stop here. We don't want to go any further than this, because if we start to go further than this, our marginal profit or our change in profit is going to be negative, and it's going to start to eat away at our overall profits. So again, these are the books for a firm in perfect competition, here showing you where they maximize their profits. This is a chart. Let's take a look at a picture, right? Picture pages, always fun with picture page. A picture's worth 1,000 words, they say, or maybe 1,000 charts. So let's show you a picture of this, a graphical representation. So here now, I have some cost curves. I have my marginal cost, my average total cost, and my average variable cost. I left off my average fixed cost because I don't need that to show you what I want to show you here. And you'll also notice that my marginal cost curve does not have a teamwork effect. It should, in reality, have a teamwork effect, but I'm not worried about showing that here, so I abstracted away from it, just a simplifying assumption. I just have my constant marginal cost, not my constantly upward sloped marginal cost. If it was constant, it would just be flat, but it's constantly upward sloped. It is intersecting our average variable cost and our average total cost at the minimum points, however, like it should. So I have my cost. Now I need to get my revenue in order to see the profits of this firm in perfect competition. So I'm going to put in my revenue side. So again here, perfect competition, not only is price equal to average revenue, but it's also equal to our marginal revenue. So this is actually the demand curve for a firm in perfect competition. Our demand curve is going to be equal to the average revenue. Why? Well, the demand curve and the average revenue curve are the same because our average revenue always equals our price as long as there's no price discrimination. We're assuming that there is none of that here. Okay, so our average revenue curve is our demand curve. So here, like I told you, not only are we producing where our marginal revenue equals our marginal cost, we're producing where our average revenue equals our marginal cost, which is our demand curve. So we're producing where our demand equals our marginal cost, or where the value to our marginal buyer equals the cost to our marginal seller. There is no deadweight loss here, right? So where are we going to produce? We're going to produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. In all of our graphs, that's the first place we want to find. We want to find that intersection because it's going to show us the quantity that we're going to produce. So we go find that point, we go down, we find here, this is the quantity that maximizes profits. So how do I know that this firm is making profits here? Well, if I take it up to the average total cost curve and I drive across there, I see the price is greater than the average total cost. The price is my average revenue. So the average revenue is greater than the average total cost. The difference between the two vertically is our per unit profit. Times our total number of units, cha-ching, gives us our total profits. So this is a firm making positive economic profit. So this must be the short run, right? Now that firms see that there's profits here, they're going to go, ooh, I like that. I like those profits. Firms outside the market are going to start to enter until the price gets us back down to our average total cost. But here, this is a firm making positive economic profit. Now, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about our marginal cost curve here. In the short run, for a firm in perfect competition, the marginal cost curve actually is our supply curve, at least above our average variable cost. As I'm going to show you in our next set of slides, that when the price drops below our average variable cost, we stop producing in the short run. So you wouldn't supply anything where your price is below your average variable cost. But from that point above, our marginal cost curve actually is our supply curve in the short run for perfect competition. Why? Because it's going to show a unique relationship between one price and one quantity supplied. That comes about because our price equals our marginal revenue. Every time our price changes, our marginal revenue is going to change with it. So there's always going to be a new quantity that we're going to want to produce in order to maximize our profits or minimize our losses. But we'll be positive here, talk about maximizing our profits. But every time the price changes, the price is equal to the marginal revenue. So they'll change together. So every time the price changes, the marginal revenue changes. So we always produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So there's always going to be a different quantity produced with a different price. That's not really the case in our other market structures. That comes about here because our price equals our marginal revenue. In our other market structures, you're going to see that we're going to have downward sloping demand curves, which means our price is going to end up being above our marginal revenue, which leaves the possibility for more than one price to be associated with one quantity. Here we have a unique relationship between one price and one quantity supplied. So once again, that's why for the firm in perfect competition, our marginal cost curve is the supply curve in the short run.